say to speak with each builder that they have an option to build with and see if, first off, if their personality meshes with their own. You don't want to be working on a huge project with somebody that you clash with. Their schedules don't align with yours. That's an important part of the process to make sure that they have the availability to not only build the project, but to confer with you during the process.
Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Chanda.
And this is the Acorn and Leaf podcast. Chanda, nice to have you here on the podcast with us today. And to introduce Chanda to everybody, she is our project manager here at Gastineau Log Homes, and she takes people from after they've signed a purchase agreement all the way up to where they're ready to start shipping and all those fun things in between. So Chanda, tell us first about what you like the most about your job as a project manager.
I like to interface with the customers. Every customer is an individual case where they have unique dreams and unique desires of how they want their project to go.
That's definitely true. No two houses are ever the same, are they?
No, they're not.
Everybody's situation. I mean, if you think about it, it's everybody's design is different, and their location is different, and how they're building the house is different. And so, that's what you're doing is kind of coordinating all that, correct?
Correct. I take people from the very beginning on to the very end. I have customers who have already completed their projects, and a year in, they're giving me a call and asking me questions. So I'm here from the start to the finish, and sometimes that finish never ends.
What is the thing that you feel that people misunderstand the most, or what do they not understand when they start into this process?
I think that they don't take into account several of the small design aspects, such as color choices, like hinges, window colors, stain colors, and those are the little details that get lost whenever they're purchasing a home. So I bring that to the forefront for them and help them with their selections so that nothing is lost.
That's one of the things I think is a little bit different about our process as opposed to maybe if somebody builds a stick home, is that we try to eliminate or make as many decisions ahead of time before construction starts compared to, I know a lot of stick builders, people are making those decisions while construction is going on. And I have the philosophy that the more decisions you can make early on means less decisions you have to make during construction where it's more stressful.
We try to get all those small decisions lined out before we go into a finals process. So that way it's all taken care of at the forefront instead of at the end when there can be monumental changes. It's like a domino effect where if you hit one domino, all the others fall. So if you can prevent that from happening, then it just prevents problems later on down the line.
What advice would you give to people after they've signed a purchase agreement and they're getting ready to start into the next step or the next stage of the process? What would be your advice to them as far as what they should do first or what they should think about?
I think they should give me as much information as they can about their project, what direction they're wanting to go with it, so that I know how to direct the project for them. There's a lot of steps within the process that could overwhelm someone who's not familiar with the process, and I'm very familiar with the process. So if I take that mental load off of them, which is my job, then they can be free to make the smaller choices and just kind of enjoy their dream as it unfolds.
That's a good idea. A good point. Looking at the design decisions that people make, are there any you seeing patterns as far as things that you think create problems for people, or things that people should avoid, or things that people should add into their design or think about their design?
I believe people definitely need to spend some time in their own space to figure out the changes that they want, as many as possible at a time. Sometimes I get a flow of changes that comes trickling in. It slows the process considerably. So if they have all their changes together at once, consolidated, then it moves the process for them so much quicker.
Yes, I know what you mean. People, as we go through design and we do what we call preliminaries, and we're going through several versions of the design, making changes as a customer's requested it. Sometimes the people have a tendency to think, oh, I think one change, and then we do that change, and then they think immediately of two more changes. They need to put a little time into looking at the plan instead of reacting immediately and trying to see if there's so that we can do more than one change in a prelim, because that, like you said, that slows the process down if you're doing one change at a time as opposed to doing several. Because there is typically like about a 2 week turnaround between sending changes to the design department and then getting those changes back. It's typically about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So that really can drag it out if you get into 7, 8, 9 different prelims.
Yes, considerably.
We want people to make all their changes before they start construction and make sure they get the plans as soon as possible. But we want to do it as efficiently as we can too, so that we don't minimize the amount of prelims that we have to do, and still get all their changes done for them.
Correct. When a customer has a design team here at Gastineau Log Homes, we guide them into the design process. But when you have an interior designer that comes through and they're making multiple decisions for a customer, then all of a sudden you have somebody comes in there and changes everything that you've done. We wait until all those changes are made with the interior designer, and then we put all the changes into the preliminary.
Yes, and I know that a lot of people like to get a lot of input from a lot of different people, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's everybody wants to. Everybody knows they're not an architectural designer, an interior designer, and so they reach out to people for that input. And we want to incorporate all those changes into their plan for them. But the most efficient way to do it is to try to do them as few prelims as possible. What do you think when people are planning and talking to builders or trying to choose a builder? What kind of advice could you give to them as far as who they would choose to build their home?
I would say to speak with each builder that they have an option to build with and see if, first off, if their personality meshes with their own. You don't want to be working on a huge project with somebody that you clash with. Their schedules don't align with yours. That's an important part of the process to make sure that they have the availability to not only build the project, but to confer with you during the process and not be blindsided by changes that they've made without you being part of the process.
What kinds of questions do people ask you during this stage, after the quotes have been done and until they start construction? What are some of the questions that people do ask you?
They ask me about certain parts of the process. Sometimes they see a builder doing one thing and they don't understand that part of the process. So I might get photos sent to me and they are asking me, is this supposed to be done like this? What are they doing? Is this part of the process? Is this normal? And so I analyze those photos, or I have one of the team analyze the photos and offer them advice as far as what's really going on the job site. And oftentimes it's very normal what's going on.
We'd build in a lot of different building code areas. I know, what kind of information is it that you need from the customer in order to help them in getting their building permits for some of these areas?
The first thing that I ask a customer is for their address or the GPS coordinates. When you have the address or the GPS coordinates, then you can give it to the building department and they can tell you a plethora of information about that location and what's required for it. It can entail snow loading, wind loading, whether the property's in a flood zone, and all of those things are really, really important as far as the design goes. Also, knowing the location lets me know whether it's in a county or a city area. That's really important because city and county have different codes from each other most of the time. And I have to know whether they need sealed drawings. And sealed drawings go to an engineer, so that's a really important part of the process.
Yeah, we build in a lot of different locations. One of the things that is always amazes me is the elevation. We build a lot of high elevations at times, and that also can just mean the fact that they need high altitude glass. And you get a lot of people that are flatlanders that are moving to the mountains, they're moving to higher elevations, and they don't realize that they need high altitude glass, and they don't understand that. And so it's something that we need to be sure that we have spec'd into their package materials, and that they can because otherwise their windows will break.
Yes, they definitely don't want a shipment of shattered glass.
No, definitely not. A lot of people try to decide between shingles and a metal roof. What kind of advice or do you give people if they ask you about the difference or the pros and cons of those two different types of roof coverings?
I think there's pros and cons to both of those. The metal is very robust, of course, but if you have hail, it can dent it, whereas if you have shingles, the hail can damage it. I don't think I have a personal opinion one way or the other, which I think is best. I think the metal makes a modern design look more modern, whereas the shingles are more traditional.
Yes, the other point, of course, is the cost. The metal roof is considerably more, and I think people are often very surprised by how much more expensive a metal roof is. A screw-down metal roof is going to be far less than a standing seam metal roof, but when most people think of a metal roof, standing seam is what they are thinking of, but they can be very, very pricey. So I have told people before that want a metal roof and it really doesn't fit into their budget, I've advised them to use the shingles now, and 10 years from now or something like that, then you could replace it with a metal roof when your finances have recovered, and they can do that also. And now in the higher elevations, the metal roof can be very helpful because of snow. So if you're building where you get 10 feet of snow every year, it might be worth the extra money for the metal roof simply because of the fact that the snow will slide off of the roof.
Right.
I was recently in Keystone, Colorado, and they had metal roofs everywhere. And I actually watched gentlemen up on the roof tied off with shovels, shoveling the snow off of the roof. And we all thought that is not a job that any of us would want.
No.
I'm sure you've heard some stories from people about the locations they're building in, like the property that they are building on. Any of those particularly come to mind to you?
I do have a current project that I'm working on where the property is narrow and long, and it's a hillside. There's a waterway below it, and the property owner didn't know whether it would pass code if they could even build the design they wanted on it. So I had to go to the building department and find out all the rules and stipulations as far as whether their design was going to fit into that parcel or not.
Well, that's not the house that is on the island in Rhode Island, is it?
No, that was an interesting case because Rhode Island is on the East Coast and subject to the nor'easters and flooding from the big storm surges. So the building department had to tell me whether he was in a flood zone or not, and luckily he wasn't. He was in a safe zone.
That is a house that I definitely want to go see. That's on an island off the coast of Providence, Rhode Island. So we had to take it all over by ferries. And that was an interesting project from beginning to end.
It really was, and it was really enjoyable.
Did we have to do anything different from our standard packages for the house that was built on the island?
It being located on the ocean, we did have a question of whether we wanted the seacoast protection on our windows, and that is offered through Pella. The seacoast protection protects it from the sea salt, and most of the homes that I've dealt with so far have been off the coast, and having that option has been really nice to offer the customers to protect their windows long term. The customer didn't know that we offered the seacoast protection, so when it was offered, he was really excited about the opportunity to preserve his windows.
Was the option for the seacoast windows something that the customer knew anything about, or was it something that you informed him of?
He knew nothing about it, so it was a product that we had only recently been informed about through operations. So having that in the arsenal of selections was really exciting, that I was actually going to be able to recommend it to somebody for a really good reason.
We've also had several people that have chosen the fiberglass option for the windows as opposed to our clad wood windows. Of the clients that you've worked with that chose the fiberglass, what reason did they give for choosing this? Because it is an additional cost for the windows. It is an upgrade.
I think the predominant reason that they chose the fiberglass over the wood clad was because they didn't want the wood on the interior. They wanted something that wasn't going to look wood on the inside. They wanted to have a consistent look inside and outside, and the fiberglass gave that to them.
The fiberglass also, because it has a smaller frame, it actually has more glass that's exposed. For if you have a location that has a view where you want the maximum amount of glass, it actually minimizes the frame, so you have a bigger piece of glass. There are a limited number of colors with the fiberglass. You can't have as many choices as you have with the wood windows, wood-clad windows. But it is also a stronger window if you're in an area that has got higher winds. It is rated at a higher scale than what the wood windows are.
Correct.
But tell me about one of your favorite projects that you've worked on and some of the design changes you helped the customer make.
I have a house that I'm working on with clients who are a very large family, and they had their design already kind of lined out whenever I received their folder. And recently, they changed the entire interior. So I actually just worked on that this week. It's a beautiful project. It's spacious, and I thought that they couldn't make it any prettier, but they really did, and they optimized all their space in a way that I was really impressed with. They moved their interior walls around to optimize the bedroom space, creating additional bed space, and they made room for extra bathrooms, extra walking space, and they optimized their sunroom by changing it into a mudroom, bathroom, and laundry room. So they really improved with the changes that they made.
Thank you, Chanda, for coming here today and for sharing your expertise and your experience with us here on the Acorn and Leaf.
You're welcome, Lynn. Thanks for having me.
you.